Welcome to this Mastery Empowerment course from New Earth One Network. This is designed exclusively for your higher self connection and embodiment. Welcome to this Mastery Empowerment course brought to you by New Earth One Network. We are here with Lowell Johnson, who has been to the multidimensional city of Telos in Mount Shasta. And he's here to share with us his spiritual teachings as a guidebook for the rest of us. The Ascension Workbook. Hi, Lowell. Welcome.
Hi, Lauren. How are you today?
Wonderful. Good to see you again.
It's good to be here. It's a nice day where I am. It'll be a good day to kind of sit outside and talk about this, but everything has led us up to this point. You have been part and parcel of this solution that's coming along. It's time for this information to be revealed the way that it is. So I might as well just kind of begin on what motivated me to get to this place. There was a series of events that have taken place now since these incredible things that have happened to me. When I look back, Telos was like 2 years ago. Last year was the encounter with all the light beings. And so, okay, everyone's asked me, what do you do with that, Lowell? How do I get to do that? And I failed to really recognize back then that when the Ascension Handbook ended up in my hands in the autumn, right after my Telos visit, that, man, my whole world opened up, because here was information from my guides that gave me the details on what I was looking for to understand Ascension. And it's a deep dive. There are 8 total sections in it. 2 sections are really designed for, outlining a training. And so you really can't count those in, but there are 5 solid sections of information to digest. The first 4, in my mind, were critical for me to understand. So when I talk about the handbook I ended up with, this wasn't channeled to me. I wasn't told to write this down, but that happened with Master Tony, who originally documented all this information in just before 2012. He had been channeled with his guides. He was located in Australia. We can't find him any longer, but someone that had heard an interview that I had done in October, a few days after that was done, and I had an opportunity to see the edited file before it was going to go live. At that point, Jojo, who was the interviewer, asked me if I had any information on Ascension and anything I could share. That morning, in my inbox, somebody had sent me the original Ascension Handbook. He had heard my story and had sent it to me, but I can't reach this person since. So you do the math on how this finally got in my hands. And it wasn't that I was going to perpetuate something new. This was sent to me to prove it to me so that I understood the ascension process and what it how it worked and the rationale behind it. I'm a dig deep and get all the details so I understand it as well as it could be understood. This document did that. It took me really months to digest the information that's in it. You have to really leave yourself open for the expressions it wants you to just kind of allow. And then watch how the universe really plays these scenarios out and these experiences. Each time that I've had an opportunity to share my information with somebody, almost every time someone says, how do I get there? I wasn't focusing on that back then. And I apologize that wasn't in the divine timing. Clearly, it was meant for me to understand this first, so I could get to a place where I could mentor others and help them understand it. But that was a process for me, just like anyone else. I had thrown it out on the website months ago and always pointed to it as a resource for others. Look, here's where I got my answers. Here's where you get yours. I didn't see myself as a mentor back then. I saw myself as a student. And although I understood a lot of this information, and I've had now influences from other dimensional guides and help, that the day that this finally came around, after you and I interviewed, where this sounds like a good idea. Never in my mind had I thought that I would be the one that would mentor this. I had to kind of come to terms with that. And quite frankly, it was only over the last 2 days that all this came to terms with me. In my opinion, people need to seek their own answers. They're inside of you. And yours are going to be different than mine in most cases, so you can't replicate my journey. However, having said that, look, I learned from others. I had guides placed in my path. I got knowledge from others too. So what I know that is unique needs to be passed on to others. So now that I put it all in that framework, it just brought me back to the source for where I found the information. And now that I understand it more completely, I'm in a better position to help others understand it too. There are some concepts that you have to allow yourself to understand. Reincarnation has to be one of them. Past lives has to be one of them. And if people have trouble getting past that, that's for me to say. I'm not here to convince anybody else. But if you're ready and open to things that you haven't really experienced yet, and that you see dreams as experiences, for example, then you are in a position to digest this information, because it's going to ask you to consider things that we have not been conditioned with by our family or school or religion or whatever it was. These are concepts outside that, but they're true. Once you have an understanding for how physically these things are going to take place, I had to go back and read through section 4 a couple of times over the last week, where it actually describes the process when the shift takes place. This hyperfield is created between the two dimensions as we're passing from one to the other. And those of us whose vibration matches, everyone else's around, including Earth, you are in a vibratory state to move with the planet. Those that are not, just fall off. And I really didn't understand completely until I went back to reread it again, what that meant. Now I have a clear picture in my human little mind and its conception of what that really looks like and what it means. As we watch this solar phenomenon, and as we're sitting here speaking, there have been significant solar flares that are, coming toward Earth. We should see them either tonight or tomorrow, the next day. But there's been a succession of that stuff's happening. That's the influence that's going to push, Earth's consciousness to the next level, is this elevated photon light energy that's coming, not just, it came from outside our solar system, and now we're being influenced by it. The sun is taking that energy and kind of modulating it for the rest of this solar system. But that's exactly why we're going to experience the solar phenomenon that we're experiencing and have been for a while now. If people resonate with the Schumann guide, that resource, and how to keep track of Earth's natural vibration, her frequency, it spiked yesterday to 46. Oh my God. So all of these things are just indications of what is to come. And so in my mind, it's not a concerning issue for those of us that are ready and know what's coming next. When you've seen the cultures in what's coming next, that's all you want to wait for. You get a little frustrated to see when it's going to happen. And I just saw somebody posted something about a solid date for the shift. I didn't read it very deeply because I think it was a month from now. Well, yeah, if you have that kind of vision, bless your heart.
Well,
that's a hard.
Would you say that it is already underway?
Oh, yes.
And it's little by little rather than one defining moment? Or do you think it is a defining moment? Because I was one of those light workers in Peru on 2012. And I learned that this ascension is it's different for everyone, like you're saying. And I don't know if I'm going to wait or hold my breath for a date. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. At first, when this whole awareness started to come to me, I had looked at it the same way that you were looking at it, that there's a date that's coming, and somehow the universe's phenomenon is all lining up. And so we've been guided to believe that this day it's going to happen. The fact of the matter is, this whole ascension thing is a process, and it's been going on for decades. We've been ingesting, if you want to look at it that way, this elevated photon energy. The Earth has been doing that for decades now. And because we're a sentient being as well, our DNA is being mutated, if you want to look at it that way, in the same fashion, where it's going to unlock those strands of DNA that everyone else thought was just junk DNA. It's not junk. It's just waiting to be reactivated. And so that's when it's going to happen. In order for us to realize things beyond this dimension, we have to have those DNA strands back at our disposal. That's what allows us to do that. When we came into these incarnations and decided that we can live on 2 strands of DNA and we'll see what happens, we're past that part. As the planet is evolving, so is every other sentient being, including humans, and it's just time. In our case, and in Earth's case, it affects our consciousness. And so with a rise in that, now the awareness of everything else that's coming is coming. And that date that we were looking for on 12/21, that is, I don't know what part, where it falls in that timeline, if we want to look at it that way, but we've already been deep into the ascension process, which explains why people like me awoke the way that we did.
Beautiful. All right. Okay. So let's go to some of these concepts that we have to understand. I would believe and feel and sense that those watching and listening to this program are very much aware of reincarnation and past lives. And what's interesting is I'd like your take on people having a lot of past life memories coming up suddenly. It's every time we have a feeling with a stranger or an aversion, an attraction or an aversion with a stranger, there's something there. So can you expand on this and this concept of past lives and why that's
Mhm.
important for this ascension process?
The tools that we're asking to have restored to us, those powers that we're having restored to us through DNA changes. Look, we were higher beings in another life. If we can get past the part where we believe that we've had past lives, then great. That says you've reincarnated. And so for me, I'm going to suggest to you now that you've done that many times, not just once or twice. You've been here and you've picked different lessons to learn in an agreement. That was your soul contract. So you came to wipe your memory banks clean. That wasn't the knowledge and the experience that you gained in those past lives aren't lost. They're stuck into your akashic records, right? And then into the collective as a result. So that stuff's just waiting. It's like a little library, and you got to go find the key again. But you have that resource waiting to call on. And each incarnation, you've chosen different lessons to learn. Now, the benefit for that is that, man, I've got this whole archive of experiences that are unique to me and my contributions back to helping the universe evolve. But once we put it in our Akash, it becomes part of the collective. And so the lessons that you learned on our behalf, Laura, thank you very much. We didn't have to learn them because you did that on our behalf. That's what's happening. So as this awareness is coming around and the allowance that you've been here before and you've learned other things, we're getting to the point where your consciousness is becoming aware of those things, and somehow our DNA is being changed so that we have access to that. Anyone who has come upon knowledge that they didn't know how they knew it, but they knew it, here is an example of that very thing.
Thank you so much for explaining that. I wanted to ask you the courses that you're going to be offering. This is based on the Ascension Handbook.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, anyone can go and grab this and work with
Yes.
it on their own. But you are offering something as a way for people to gain information from you, gain insight with you, almost like a mentorship on this. And
Yes.
so what's going to happen in each of these lessons?
I see these more as study groups where I had access to this information too. But what I lacked when I got my hands on information that was, outside of really maybe my realm of reality right now, is that I didn't have any kind of touchstone. I didn't have anybody I could ask about any of this stuff. And so I was kind of on my own. Well, now that I've digested it the way that I have, and I have a real comprehension of what it is, I know what my role is supposed to be next. I've been a leader and a teacher all my life. Now it's my turn. Just like I said, I was here to help others ascend. Here's how I do that. I get an opportunity to help these other people that are already resonating with the information. Maybe there's details in it that we're going to find because, man, you deep dive into each one of these sections, and 2 hours may or may not cover it. We'll find out. But at least now there's a resource for somebody who's been there, done that, that can kind of give us a frame of reference for ourselves. Not that this is a path that we're suggesting you're going to follow just like us, but along the way, just like I said before, guides were placed in my path and taught me things I didn't know. So it's my turn to share what I know with somebody else.
Yes, that is you stepping up as a leader. And I think it's a call for all light workers to step up as leaders and truly assist others. Okay, so let's cover some of the chapters in the Ascension Handbook that you're going to talk about.
As I was looking for it, I was thinking that I was looking for pieces of it that I could use as promo. And when I got to section 5, there's a part in there that's actually, it kind of assembles all the information at the end. and kind of gives you a snapshot of, when this is all done, here's the situation. So I thought that for the audience that's interested, I would point them to section 5 first as a preparation. Go read this and digest it. It'll start to generate questions that you're going to have, because when we get to section 1, 2, 3, and 4, it's going to cover all that information in detail.
Yes, it's almost like it's non-linear in that way. Very
Right.
quantum, where we can pick it up from anywhere. Okay, so what's interesting is we've got the introduction to ascension, and this is personal ascension versus planetary ascension. And we also talk about the law of one. Now that's very interesting. These are universal concepts.
Yes.
And so for people who, go ahead.
Yeah, the law of one is the fourth dimensional universal concept. It is universal love, and compassion and unity is the theme for the fourth dimension. What we're in right now is service to self in the third dimension. And it was where we learned our lessons about duality and ego and how we got to put all that in perspective. But we don't look at each other in this dimension as part of everyone else, that's the hallmark of the fourth dimension, that we all realize we're all connected to everybody else. And unconditional love and compassion is the law that rules. Now, when I say all this, that's a wonderful concept. The thing is, we don't spend a lot of time in the fourth dimension. It's a gateway to 5. And so you're going to sort your karma out, and then you're moving to a fifth dimensional awareness anyway, which is the law of love. So that's unlimited wisdom and unlimited love. There is a scale inside the Ascension Handbook. There is a law for each one of the dimensions. I can't remember them all because I'm still focusing on 4 and 5, but 6, 7, 8, and 9 are there as well. So you can understand the hierarchy in your spiritual enlightenment. And as you go to the next dimension, you see what the universal law that applies is.
All right, beautiful. And another section, we're just going to go through this, the multi-dimensional universe. That concept is something with dimensions and densities, the time-space continuum. This is where it can get really mind-blowing and really expand our consciousness.
Yeah. When I got to this section before, here's where I was determined to understand the solar system and the planetary influences, and how vast the Milky Way is alone, and then think of that's just one little universe. We're so focused on what's going on the planet that the stories that now have begun to evolve through the disclosure movements is that people have had extraterrestrial contact, or they're channeling information. This stuff has been around us for a lot longer than we've been on the planet. We just keep so busy focused on other things that we're not aware of all that magic. And so when you get yourself, and you can elevate your vibration so it matches with all that magic around you, you get to see and experience it. And so once you've started to touch those kind of things, it's tough to come back to third dimensional constructs and have to deal with this and traffic. I was saying to Zan yesterday, we've been in Phoenix for a while, and so there's traffic going everywhere. Well, before that, we were in the Grand Canyon and all by ourselves, and that kind of peace and serenity is what I crave. And that's where I find my connection to higher dimensions easily. It's not that I can't do it here, but you got to wipe out a lot of white noise in order to focus and get to that quiet place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so when we're talking about cities and things, do you think the shift is going to be equal for those in the city? What's going to happen there? Have you contemplated that?
Mhm. Nothing man-made exists after this elevation to the next realm. I have visions of what I think New Earth looks like, but when I understood that nothing that was man-made exists, well, okay, you're going to take out all the synthetics, any kind of something that wasn't already made. So would be certainly something that would be available, but I have questions about what kind of metals are there going to be. Now, remember, when I had my multi-dimensional visits, I didn't see any metal either. If I think about it, everything was built out of crystal, not just the things that are around us, but our matter is changing in that same way too. If you've been paying attention during some of these solar phenomenons, yesterday I had a couple of downloads. Well, then I remembered what was going on. So if you start to look at these things, to just kind of take them in consideration, you see how they begin to line up. I finally seen a few posts on Facebook where people are talking about symptoms when we're going through these solar storms. Oh yeah, we're electromagnetic beings just like everything else. Why wouldn't we expect we weren't going to be influenced when all of a sudden there was a jolt of it that came in our direction? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, very interesting. I was going to ask you about the symptoms that may affect us. And so, like you said, yesterday, the Schumann resonance shot up. And what would that do? Would it make us, personally, today, I feel very exhausted. Is this like a symptom as well? Because it's energy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a drain. All of a sudden, your system's been shocked by energy that it wasn't used to. And think of our bodies as a capacitor. So if we take in that much, something's got to go somewhere else. So there's got to be some kind of relief that takes place because you're just making space for different energy to be exchanged.
All right. Well, that really does explain how we can just be gentle with ourselves and move through these times together, taking them as indicators to slow down, perhaps, to relax a little bit more, to retreat from the mental awareness, the mind games, or that mental state, and really be in the heart. So, one aspect that's really important is what we call alignment. And you've mentioned this before in our other interviews. And this really deals with the human energy body and the
Yes.
chakras. So give us
Yes.
a little introduction to the chakras, because you're going to go deeper into this in the courses.
Yes.
What's going on there? What's up with that?
That's one of those fundamental things we have to understand, that when we connect to everything else and the fact that we're this electromagnetic, being too, that there's actually, we're aware of the physical body because that's what we see, that's what we play, but there's an ethereal body that's around us at the same time. That is our electromagnetic connection to everything else. Sometimes we're aware of it, sometimes we're not, but that's a focus that you can improve with more attention on it. When you break down the body and you start to look at chakras, and at first it was a foreign word to me too, I had to understand it. The chakra centers are electromagnetic, let's say, node points. They're meant for exchanges. So to keep it simple, because there are a lot more chakras than the 12 we'll talk about, but 7 of them are in your physical body. So you have your root chakra, and then the sacral, and then the solar plexus, and then your heart chakra, the throat, third eye, and crown. There are 2 above that are in your ethereal. In order for us to find alignment, each one of those chakras has to work like a well-oiled machine. And when there's a blockage in one, it affects the flow for your body to connect your body. So us light workers, we carry light. We know we can draw it in and we anchor where we are. We can't do that when our alignment is not complete. When it has, your kundalini has risen. That's what they call that. It's also called a rainbow bridge when your physical body is in alignment. And so you help draw that light from source and connect it to ground through that perfect vessel. When they're not in alignment or when they're blocked, then we look for symptoms on how we can unblock them, because we have total control over that. And when you start to look at the ethereal part to the physical part, each one of the chakras lines up with a part of your endocrine glands. Each one, there are 7 of them too. They serve those purposes. And so you're looking at both the physical results of good health in those areas, and what your ethereal health is like compared to everything else. The ethereal experiences you're going to carry with you after this. That's who we are. Our physical bodies, now that I understand it, I didn't know. The question I always had is, if we're going to go from carbon-based to crystalline, how does that happen? What does it look like? According to what I read again, that happens during the shift. One moment, you are this. The next moment in your awareness, you're that, if your vibration matches. So somehow that whatever's going to initiate the process has been inside of us, and it's been working for a while. That's why some of us who have access to things that we didn't know before, ours is accelerated. But everyone's is accelerating now, is it not?
Everyone's is accelerating. You know, we've had people reporting spontaneously speaking light language. We talked about a lot of past life memories coming up for people.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it's happening. And this is why it's so important to raise our vibration. As we do raise our vibration, just by being in joy and love, we realize that it really comes from within us. That's the ascension process right there. Being able to lift ourselves out of the denser energies. So we've done a lot of clearing of these thoughts and belief systems that no longer serve us. So I know there are so many who are ready to really go forward and do the crystalline consciousness, Christ consciousness, bring it on. Yes, let's just bring it on. The course that you're going to teach is right here on this webpage, and we invite our viewers to check it out, get registered for it. It's beautiful time with you, 2 hours each session, maybe a little bit longer.
Yes. If it has momentum and people have questions, this is exactly what that vehicle is for. And that's why I thought it's more of like a study group. There's people that already have an interest in this concept. They're just trying to, again, find touchstones that can help me understand what is being revealed.
Thank you. That's going to be beautiful. So we invite our viewers and listeners to look at that and register for it. So one of the things that I would be remiss if I did not ask you about would be, when you went into Telos and met with a being there, Alex, did you get any insight on ascension? What do they, I mean, they in a way have already ascended in another, would you say that's 5D that they're in?
They're a 4 and 5D beings, yes. But let me kind of put the 4D thing into perspective. Okay. Here's where we'll cover details, because there are subtones within each dimension. There are 12 of those as well. Right now, Earth is in 3.8 is the harmonic that she finds herself in. But when you move a dimension, You don't move, 1/12, you move an entire dimension. So we go from 3.8 to 4.8. See how close to the fifth dimension all of that consciousness is already. So it's, again, a place where, as I understand it, your karma gets cleared. And then you actually still make a choice. When you get back there, the fourth dimension is really, that's the angelic realm. That's, when we go, when we think of heaven, in my understanding, this is where we go. So we're either going to choose a new soul contract. Maybe I want to learn some more 3D lessons. It won't be here on Earth because it's no longer a 3D planet. But there are other places that you can play out those lessons that you still want to play out. If your vibration matches with the next dimension, then you're already physically suitable to live it and experience that environment. Those people that are still trying to figure it out, they drop off the planet, but they recycle, just like the incarnation. They're going to choose what they're going to do next. They can either ascend with the rest of us, or they can choose, another 3D experience.
So the goal is just be happy and be in the love vibration, really being in the heart. That's the recipe.
Yes, when we go through chakras, you'll look at your lower chakras first. If those aren't clear, nothing happens above that. The heart is like the centerpiece in all of it. Because once this is clear below and your heart is open, now to open your throat and your third eye, that happens almost a flash. Here is where our human being, everything south of the heart is what makes us physical. And the things that determine our humanness. Once we get above the heart, speaking, seeing, connecting, that happens almost in a flash. And once your crown fires up, then the 8th and 9th chakras, or 7th and 8th, they just fire up like dominoes. Now they say the 9th chakra is the one that's below your feet. But I've always seen that as when I connect, my light anyway, I see myself, digging in and grabbing part of Earth's grid. And that's how I connect. I guess that's the description of how I understand people have described the 9th chakra. And then there are 2 above that and plenty above that. But I'm focusing on 4 and 5. I'm trying to stay in the moment and be helpful.
So when we are talking about raising our vibration, and the Lemurians, the Telosians are of a higher vibration, when we raise our vibration, will we be able to meet them? Would you say that we could call on them?
Without question.
Would that be a physical visit, someone coming to our door? Would it be an etheric visit in our room? Or what is that? What do you think?
Well, you're trying to see how we put this in 3D terms. Physical, I want to see, touch, taste. Think of what your communication styles are going to be like when you get to the next realm. Are we going to pick a language to communicate with something? No, probably not, because we'll be able to telekinesis is part of the top powers we've got. I see communication in the next realm being music, some type of sound, symbols, colors, and there's a 4th realm there. That's how I see us communicating in the future. We already know we're connected to one another. So our thought patterns shouldn't be that remote. We don't really have to do that. And once our vibration matches 4th and 5th, again, now you experience all those things. That, in retrospect, coming out of Telos is a miraculous thing. How the hell did I get there? My body was ready for a dimensional experience. That my vibration must have been high enough for me to experience what I experienced. That was what it was. So since then, when I've talked about the trip to Telos, which again is a miraculous thing, that's not the end all and be all, guys. The ability to go somewhere multidimensionally is much more important. And if Telos is a choice, absolutely, you can communicate with anybody in that realm, but there are lots of other things you can choose as well.
You would think communication in the future, you said music, symbols, colors, telekinesis, telepathy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the word transparency comes up. It's almost as if we cannot hide anything.
Yeah.
And
we're authentic. There's no reason to hide anything. There's no duality to play out anymore. So we don't need to learn bad lessons. It's not that we won't see good, bad, hot, cold, on, off. You'll still see that, but from our new dimensional perspective, we see beyond that. And if there's adjustments that we need to see and make due to, a new situation that we've come across, that's where we're all part of the solution. We're all looking to fix it together instead of we're going to find a camp and we're going to be against it and we're going to be for it. That no longer exists.
Hallelujah. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We're watching that old paradigm really play out in the 3D realm in our collective. So
isn't it though?
yeah. I believe in this whole process, this journey that we've been on as a collective, that there's just, because the vibration has risen on the planet, and so many people have woken up, there is a lack of tolerance for those old patterns that seem very juvenile at times. So these are promising signs to me for the collective. I know Ascension is such a personal and individual journey, but we care so much about the collective and we want to reach down and help others along the way as well. So it's all just very fascinating. And, with your journey to Telos, that was quite fascinating, but yet here you are still traveling and going outdoors in nature, having other multidimensional experiences. Do you want to share anything on that? Because some would say the 3D mind would go to, wow, I just want more of that Telos stuff.
Well, I do. It's not to say that I don't, but having been to other places, I just like being outdoors anyway. And I like to find, things that are peaceful and serene. Everywhere I go now, I find that next dimensional magic. So Shasta, as amazing as it is, isn't the only place where you can experience those things. And nature always seems to come through. It didn't matter where I was, but the more alone I seem to be, and now Zan's my twin flame, so that's like, you're traveling with yourself anyway. We've seen amazing things over the last several weeks that picked up on vortexes in places that no one would have expected to. There's been certainly lots of traffic through the petrified forest. I'd been there many times, but there was a section called Blue Mesa that was like 3.5 miles that way off the main road, and I never took it. I thought, 3.5 miles, one day I'll come back. I had no idea what I was missing when I didn't take that trip. But the last time that Zan and I were there was a rock outcropping right on the edge of this cliff. No one could have moved it there, but this wasn't like anything else there. And as I got closer to it, man, there was just something radiated from it. So I drew my light there, and when it was there, holy cow, this whole place like glowed. Now, there wasn't a soul around us when this happened, but it was, the road's right over there. There's a parking lot right over here. So there should have been traffic because it was 1 or 2 in the afternoon. We had the place to ourselves. So we documented it. I've been putting compass readings. So if people want to find the spot again, please just respect the area because you're in the middle of a national preserve. But if you want to feel what we felt, it's kind of my obligation to just point out the places I've been where I found some energy that others can pick up on. just think of all that petrified wood and all that energy. It's just been waiting for someone to come. Well, I experienced it. It was so nice. What a beautiful day.
Yes, very, very cool. Thank you. Thank you. I know many are being motivated to just get outdoors and to go to sacred sites, or not even sacred sites, just spots in nature, and go out and feel those energy centers. So wonderful. Well, this has been beautiful. Your course is available here on this webpage. Also available on this page is the Sensing Energy Vortexes, Energy Portals. You've done a class on that, and that is available here too. So this is wonderful. Would you like to share any last notes about your course as we wrap up?
It took me a while to come to terms with what my role was supposed to be. And now that it is, I want to hit myself up the head. I had always said I was going to be here to help others. I just didn't really understand how that was going to be. Well, now that I understand this process, and we're all in it and we're all looking for answers, well, it's my turn to share what I know and what I've experienced.
Beautiful. Well, as someone who's experienced the inside of Telos, I know you're going to have many people wanting to have you as a mentor, or at least in a study group with you. Wonderful information that you're sharing. It's been given to you and you are sharing it. That's a lesson for all of us. When we receive channeled messages or messages of the heart, we share it. And I know that's hard for some people, but you're doing it, and that is an inspiration to others. So thank you. All right. And thank you everyone for watching. And when you are experiencing multidimensional information, if you share it too, then you are doing a service as well. If you'd like to sign up for this workshop, please find it on this webpage. We look very forward to seeing you there. Thank you, Lowell, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.